I'm Jordan,
And I'm Wyman.
and you're watching Speedway Pulse Media.
Hey Jade, you got
Hey,
us?
can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
can hear
do.
you
How are you
great.
doing?
Good. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. Pulled over for a few minutes, heading back
Uh-oh.
to a job site, and but I got some time before I need to be there.
Well, we're glad to have you on the show here. It's really awesome get to have you on here and hear a little bit more
Yeah,
about your career.
yeah. It's been a roller coaster, that's for sure.
We like to always start and ask our people on here, what was your start in racing? What kind of got you into it?
So in middle school, I played around on dirt bikes a whole
Mhm.
lot, and mostly just like trail riding. I didn't do a whole lot of racing. And then my dad did cars as a hobby, did just like track days.
Mhm.
And when I got old enough, I started going with him.
Mhm.
And when I would go, I had a driving coach that would work with me. And he kind of helped me in professional racing. So I went into sports cars. Back then it was Grand Am
Yeah.
and just kind of worked my way up, ran a bunch of GT cars, did the Rolex 24 3 times, and then raced in IMSA for about a decade
Yeah,
and SRO British GT.
yeah, sports car racing has really grown a lot, I think, here in the US with the GTP and
Yeah,
stuff. And I think sports car racing
right.
is a lot very relatable to people because, it doesn't matter if you're driving a Corvette or Porsche, you see those cars on track and it looks exactly like the road version of it you can get.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a lot of identifiers.
I've had a lot of time with the Rolex. I've worked the Rolex as a corner worker and stuff. This was my
Hmm.
first year doing it, and I've gone to it a bunch of times. It's an awesome race to get to just watch or even do the corners on it.
Yeah, it's really blown up. I've raced in it 3 times and I've spotted for it 3 times.
I bet spotting. I bet that's a
And
that's a beast on its own.
it is. There's some people that can do it all by themselves, but every time I've done it, it's at least been two or three spotters,
We just
and we trade off, just
kind of
like
do like shift
drivers.
work on it.
Hmm.
You know, um,
So it's interesting.
we a lot of people seen you driving throughout your career, and we've seen you drive, like you said, SRO, GT, IMSA, and Trans Am, NASCAR. Would you say that driving in different series helps make you a better all-around driver?
Oh, absolutely. And I would always encourage anybody to get into anything they can possibly get into.
Mhm.
Uh, Having experience in multiple disciplines is kind
Mhm.
of necessary if you want to have like a successful long career. You have to be able to hop from one to the other because you never know where your next opportunity might come from.
Like a lot of your competitors in NASCAR, seen a lot of them coming from all other forums, like
Yep.
SVG this year, he's raced Australia and all over the world. And then a lot of other cup guys are, branching out and trying stuff. And you see a lot of guys actually going like in the series you did Trans Am because
Hmm.
it's really more, similar field to the Xfinity Cup car or something
Yep.
with like
No, they can be very
this.
similar. Right? There's definitely with an Xfinity car, I would say is probably the hardest thing in the world to drive
Mhm.
compared to everything else. But the next closest thing would be a Trans Am
Trans Am.
car. Just the amount of fuel you get through the chassis, the amount of tire you have to work with, and the capabilities of the car.
Because a lot of them have given, it's really in between from driving a GT compared to a NASCAR. It's got that good feel in between.
Right. It does. And it literally falls right in the middle
Oh,
with power and weight
it-
and speed.
it-
And
See,
they really are
it's
right in the
pretty
middle.
easy to jump in from one. It seems like it'd be pretty easy to jump in one from the other and, be able to set pretty consistent laps on it. I've seen, I've heard from other drivers that say that.
Yeah. Yeah. But like from Xfinity to Trans Am, that would be an easy switch.
But,
The Trans Am would be the easier one to go
mm,
to.
mm,
From a GT car to a TA2 car, that would still be a pretty big jump. Like most drivers would probably struggle with the same things they would struggle with if they went to an Xfinity car. Maybe not as much because there is more grip
mm,
available.
you know, um, it's like I said, we've seen you in so many different things, and we kind of touched on that. What would you say maybe some differences you've had to learn between running different series other than, maybe obvious, like learning controls and then, braking points and stuff? What would you say are some different differences between different cars you've driven?
So most cars are all very similar. The
Hmm.
the big jump came from like when I made the move to NASCAR and like
Hmm.
hop straight into an Xfinity car on a road course. It's like everything's out the window.
Mhm.
Most like driving prototypes, the GT cars of various horsepower and various speed, everything was very relative. Like your
Mhm.
braking points are all roughly similar. Some can go a little deeper, but you're gonna roll more corner speed. With NASCAR, it's like, no, all this is different. Like I'm breaking a football field earlier, and I still feel like I'm gonna fly off the end of the road. And I'm going 20 miles per hour
That's
faster
true.
at the braking zone. So, and the grip level is half of what it should be, or feels
Mhm.
like what it should be. So that's the biggest jump. That was the biggest adjustment from going just from like sports cars to NASCAR on road courses. And then the other challenge that I was faced with was learning ovals and doing it during COVID and not having any practice
But
or
yeah, no
qualifying
practice. Yeah,
and just
a
having to
lot of
figure
drivers,
it out.
yeah, a lot of drivers had to lean on doing, like the iRacing sims and stuff to
Yeah.
learn tracks and stuff.
Yeah, that's all I had. And sometimes it was really close, and sometimes it was like, it's not the same.
Same. And then, like take for example Atlanta, when you did
Yeah,
one of the last races on the old pavement, now it's a
yeah,
wholly totally different beast out there. It runs like Daytona or
completely different game.
Talladega.
It does learn. Yeah. So
But
yeah, that I remember Atlanta being some tracks I would take really well too. Like I took really well to Phoenix
mhm.
and Las Vegas and Michigan. Then some places I was like, okay, that's gonna take a little bit of time, and you're gonna
It's
have to bite your teeth.
a lot of tracks, no two, I think no two tracks are the same, but a lot of tracks have a lot of
Mhm.
similarities.
Yep.
You know,
So there was some like crossover. Like we had a great run at Dallas my first time there.
mhm,
And I was like, well, 3 and 4 feels like Michigan, three
mhm,
and or
mhm,
1 and 2.
mhm.
And so it's like you just throw it in there and hope it sticks.
Six
Let it go where it wants to go.
months ago. And a lot of it, you got to kind of feel it out to see where the right grip and line is because,
Yeah.
it'll start out maybe on the bottom, but by the end of the race, everyone's moved up to the top line or in the middle.
Yeah. And that was something that I had to deal with. Like some places it was easier to make those adjustments and kind of
Mhm.
feel where the car was trending and how it would fix itself. And then other places it would be like, okay, yeah, it doesn't feel like it's gonna capable of doing anything. It doesn't matter if I put it in the wall
Well,
or put it up to the wall. It's gonna go into the
with the
wall.
wall. Like that with sports cars, a lot of those tracks are, pretty, I would say groove to groove and a half. You can kind of make something work. It really
Yeah,
depends on what, like road course you're at. I've seen like here in the
yeah,
US with like Daytona and Road Atlanta, you can make it extra groove, but sometimes you'll have to use
right,
someone up. And then it kind
right,
of depends what corner you're at there as well.
right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there's not as much variance. That's what when I talk to like my sports car friends, I'm
Hmm.
like, that's what you don't understand. Like that's the most odd like in sports cars, you turn in from the outside of the corner, you make your way to the apex, you track
Hmm.
out pretty much the same time every time. In NASCAR, it can be different from one lap to the
Oh,
next,
absolutely.
and it may be the most obvious way, the fastest way around, maybe the longest way around.
Right, bro.
Yeah,
It's all,
and
it's all dependent on where
it's
you
a
can.
different way of thinking.
Yeah, and you got to think differently between different series. It's like, nothing's on
Mhm.
drive really the same. They'll all, drive similarly, but there's always a
Right,
different feel between one jumping from one to the other.
right.
It's kind of like, I've seen I corner marshal a lot at a track called Roebling Road, and I see people on the
Yeah,
motorcycles are able to make a lot of different lines compared to people on the cars because I guess maybe there's just a thin line between the car and the bike, and it's able to make it work there.
yeah. I do bikes as well.
Mhm.
A lot of that comes just from it's similar to like I actually say a bike is actually very close to how like NASCAR drives on
Oh,
a road
really?
course. Right? There's so much power that
Mhm.
you will make changes to your line just to put power down.
Put it down.
Because it can be a difference of if you get back to full throttle a couple tenths of a second earlier, it can be a difference of 10 miles per hour down a
Power.
straightaway. And that's going to be worth pinching off an exit and really just standing the bike up early as soon as you can
Yeah.
versus rolling speed through the center.
Yeah, bikes are, I've watched the bikes and all, and And I've noticed, on a car, if you make a mistake, it is extreme. You can catch that one pretty easily, but a bike,
Mm,
one mistake and it'll throw you off of it.
yeah.
They're quite a
I always
beast to
say
handle.
there's no such thing as a subtle understeer on a
No,
motorcycle.
no.
It's called
You have any
crashing.
ambitions of racing the bikes or just doing like track days and stuff?
I will do hobby. It'll be a hobby.
Hmm.
Maybe one day down the road, but very distant future. I
Yeah.
enjoy it, doing it a hobby, keeping it non-competitive,
Hmm.
and just going out there and trying to be a better rider
Yeah.
every time I get on it.
It's like you said, I think even doing motorcycle, doing that probably it helps you a lot. Gives
Oh
you
yeah,
a different perspective, I guess, would say, of, compared to a car to the bike, even when it's a track you may have
right.
raced at 10 times and, very, very easily.
Yeah. I think it's just like drivers use go-karts. It's
Mhm.
a very good way of fine-tuning and making sure you're disciplined. On a bike, you're forced to be disciplined because
There's a thin
you have no
line
crash
and
structure. You are the
yeah,
crash structure.
yeah. And, it's easy. I think it's
So,
probably easier to fix the car than it is the bike.
oh yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah.
bike,
The bike would be a mess.
yeah, even bike when one of those,
It's
I've
the bit
seen,
that tumbles.
yeah, it tumble, and then it goes into a million pieces, even, one
Yeah,
fall.
right.
You know,
But I try to stay disciplined on it, and I think that's something that helps me really stay focused and sharpen my skill set.
mhm. You know, what would you say would probably be your biggest achievement in your career up to this point? And I know you still probably got a long way to go in your career. What would you say is
Yep.
probably your biggest one so far?
There's been a few wins, but one of probably like my most proud moment was just when I got my first top 10 on an oval
Hmm.
with Big Machine in our first year, because nobody expected that. Even talking to some of the, I call them white shirts, the
Hmm.
manufacturer
Lectures.
execs. I walked by a few of them and they're like, have you been here before? I'm like, nope. And they just gave me the, good luck. And it went great that day.
But
And I was
yeah, I
like,
remember
I'd
when
stick
y'all
to that place
first came on
forever.
the scene, and I think it was 2021, into
Yeah.
2020, beginning 21, and y'all really jumped onto it really quick. Y'all really had a lot of success now, and it's really grown into a really good operation. They're up there
Yeah.
contending every week.
Right. No, they've made some good changes and big upgrades on their equipment and that program. Hopefully it sticks around for a while.
Oh, absolutely. They got, they've got good backing with the sponsorship, and, they've got a good partner with Chevrolet, and I believe they're aligned with RCR or Colleague.
Mhm.
And so they're getting a lot of good
RDR.
help there. You know, we've seen you now move over with Mike Harmon Racing. Are you,
Right.
how has that maybe changed compared to from Big Machine going from one team to the other?
It's a much smaller operation, but
Mhm.
I really want to help those guys down the road
Or-
when the time is right. And I think we all have the agreement that we'd like to see Mike be successful
mhm.
and not always be looked at as just a small team
Well, mhm.
and see where they can go. I don't know the timeline of any of that, uh, but I hope they've been very nice to work with and they are good people.
Mhm.
So no matter if we do more races or we don't ever do a race again, I just want the best for them.
Yes. Yeah, and they've been a team that's been around for a lot, they've been around for as long as I
Forever.
can remember. So they're a pretty well established organization. They just don't have as many of the resources as, like you said, Big Machine or maybe Colleague,
Right.
RCR, someone. But they're a great team to work with, and a lot of their drivers have gone on to, get some pretty, fairly good rides and have shown success. Like I think probably their biggest one they've had was Kyle Weatherman, and
Yeah,
he's moved on to DGM, and he's done really well with his career so far.
yeah, I agree.
You know, we've talked about your different career stuff, but where do you want to see your career go maybe in the future? Is it you want to continue NASCAR? Do you want to transition back to other things, or where would you like to keep it going?
Uh, I'd like to continue NASCAR for
Okay.
as long as I
Hmm.
can. I'm not opposed to doing like partial schedules
Hmm.
for the rest of my career. I kind of like that aspect. I found doing the full schedule was really, really exhausting,
Yeah.
especially because I live in Nashville
Mhm.
and I don't live in Charlotte. And so I'm like, I would like to find good rides, be a specialist,
Mhm.
and do probably the most 10 races a season,
Mhm.
10 to 15, no
Mhm.
more than that. But, but then I also want the ability to kind of broaden out and maybe do some other forms of racing as
Mhm.
well, and just kind of make time for other stuff. And with the main focus of being kind of doing what I want to do
Mhm.
versus what I have to do.
Do.
And that would be my ultimate goal. Is like get to a point where I can run all the races that I want to run and still have something that resembles a life at the end of the day.
Mhm. Yeah, because a lot of them guys, that's all they do is week
That's all
after
they
week
do.
after week,
Right.
traveling from one place to another. I don't, I really wouldn't blame you there wanting to run maybe 10 to 15 races, spread it out. That way it gives you some sense of normality instead of on the road every week doing a
Right.
race.
Yeah, it can be exhausting,
Oh, I
but I
can
loved it.
imagine
I was so thankful for every opportunity I got. I'm like, who gets to do this? I'm like, not many people.
people.
And it's just wild. But I was like, all right, I've done it. And there's a way I want to do it if I can.
Especially like you've gotten to do something that most people haven't gotten to do is race around the globe, like with the British
Right.
GT Challenge.
Hmm.
You got to race
That
at
was all.
some of the
The
best
fans
tracks in the
have been
world over
amazing.
there.
Yeah. And that's one thing I want to do. I want to kind of branch out. I'd like to do more stuff overseas one day,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be on cars or just going and riding a motorcycle over there.
Over there. And they
Yeah,
got
it's
great tracks for
tracks.
both.
They do.
Because I think, it doesn't like let's take for Le Mans example, you can do the
Yeah.
24 hours or you can do it on bikes there.
Right. Yeah. And like I was talking to a friend the other day. I was like, how much I want to go to Spa
Oh yeah,
and
Spa's
ride the bike.
yeah, I think they have an endurance bike race that would be
They
really
do,
awesome to do.
which is I know a couple of friends that do that stuff, and I'm like, y'all are crazy.
Especially, like they've
You
got a 24-hour bike race at Le Mans. I can imagine that's, what the regular race is 20
3 to
something
4
laps, but
riders,
24
yeah,
hours on a bike.
2 hours at a time.
Oh my gosh. Well, I have at my track I work at, we have Wira, the Western
Hmm.
Eastern road racing, and they
Yep.
do like either 4 or 5 hour endurance race.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
can
It's I've,
imagine.
I've ridden with a couple of those guys, and I'm like, how are you not dead? Like it
And
is so
I think they
exhausting.
bring 2 or 3 drivers. Last year I did it and we had Josh Hayes there and he's a big
Mhm.
name motor, he's super
It is
sport
big.
driver. But yeah, it's I think you don't see a lot of people like you that go from cars to bikes and kind of find an in between of it. I think that's really
Yeah.
interesting because most people, are going to stick to one thing, whether it be strictly
Right.
the cars or the bikes, which I think that's
Right.
really cool.
I think they both build on each other, and I
Mhm.
love both. So if as long as I can do both, I'll do both.
And racing bikes and cars are, in a way, they're 2 different things, but a lot of ways they have a lot of similarities.
They do.
I would say, cars, you've got to be able, uh, mentally because the races are a lot longer. But on a
Mm.
bike, you've got to be able to physically, when you turn into the corner, be able to pick it back up. So I would
Right.
say, a lot of it, your hands are probably got to be your most strongest part to be able to do a bike, hands and fingers, because there's no really gas pedal. You have to twist the handle to you.
And it's core as well, because
Core,
you're
oh, absolutely.
at full lean, you're holding on mostly with your knees,
Mhm.
so on the outside of the tank. And there's a I have a bunch of rules that I'm like I have to follow, like for body position,
Mhm.
and it just keeps me in line. But the hands definitely get tired if you're trying too hard. Your neck will definitely get tired,
Oh yeah.
and you will feel like you have done a million sit-ups by the end of the day.
Would you say that the dragging your knee helps gain time? I see a lot of people do that.
So dragging your knee is a feeler.
Hmm.
It really like I don't drag my knee too much because try to position it exactly kind of at my max for lean angle.
Hmm.
And if it touches, then I know I cannot turn harder. I am doing all that the tires can do. So my knee only touches very rarely. Um, but if my knee touches, then my elbow is probably about 1 inch off the ground as well. Because one of my rules is elbows to knee. I try to stick my elbow out as far as I stick my knee out. And so it's just all riding position.
Because
But
I've seen,
we joke all the time. I see riders that I'm like, what kind of yoga do they do to be going 5 miles per hour through a corner and they almost got their helmet touching the ground?
oh my gosh.
Because I'm like, I ride circles around them and my knee's not on the ground.
Well, because we get, people from all different things with bikes, different track days, and then we even get, like the Moto America guys come test there with Dunlop, and some of them I see do that, and some of them I see drag knee, and some don't. So I always wondered, is there a kind
Yeah.
of in between
It's a style.
style?
No, it's just a style. It has nothing to do with speed.
Speed.
Like some riders that are not even fast, they can drag their knee in every single corner.
Mhm.
Some very, very fast riders, you'll see them rarely touch their knee.
Their knee.
They just position it where if it touches, they're done.
And,
They are at the limit.
but, well, Jade, it was really great getting to talk to you today and, get to find out a little more about your career and stuff. And we really enjoyed it and hope you could come back and do another
Yeah.
show for us. So we hope we catch back up with you.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah,
Anytime.
this was a lot of fun. I had fun doing this one today.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Awesome, Jade. But yeah, best of luck to you as you continue your career, and we hope to, see some more, some news coming out pretty soon. Maybe, more Xfinity rides or something else.
Yeah. I think there'll be something here soon.
Awesome. We'll be one of the first ones to report on it.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
All right. You have a good rest of the day and talk
You
soon.
too. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.